Hollywood legend stepped out of his modest car, his faded jeans and worn sneakers starkly out of place against the gleaming glass walls of the Beverly Hills mansion. Christine, the real estate agent waiting at the entrance, eyed him with thinly veiled disdain. Her polished blazer and practiced smirk radiated superiority as she blocked his path. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "This property isn't open to the public." Ooh, Hollywood legend remained unfazed. "I have a scheduled visit." Christine checked her tablet, her smile tightening. Another time waster, she thought. But the appointment was real. Reluctantly, she led him inside, her comments laced with passive aggression. "Just so you're aware," she said, gesturing to the soaring ceilings, "this home is priced for serious buyers." What Christine didn't know, what she couldn't have guessed, was that this ordinary man was anything but. As they toured the mansion, her snide remarks about budgets and experienced owners clashed with Hollywood legend's quiet questions about ventilation, durability, and the view of the fruit trees outside. But beneath his calm demeanor lay a truth that would soon unravel her arrogance. By day's end, Christine's career would hang in the balance, her judgment shattered by the very man she'd dismissed. Because the client she'd mocked wasn't just another face in the crowd. He was Hollywood legend, Hollywood's most beloved star. And this tour was about to become a lesson she'd never forget. The quiet corridors of the Beverly Hills real estate office exuded an air of exclusivity. It was a place where only the wealthiest and most elite were catered to. Every detail, from the polished marble floors to the modern minimalist decor, spoke of sophistication. In the manager's office, Hollywood legend sat across from a neatly dressed man who seemed both professional and approachable. Hollywood legend's attire was simple, a casual button-up shirt and jeans, but his calm posture and quiet confidence made him stand out. His expression was thoughtful as he described his ideal home. "I'm looking for something functional, yet full of character," Hollywood legend said. "I want a space that connects the indoors to nature, a home where I can work, relax, and feel grounded. It doesn't need to be flashy, but it must have quality in every detail." The manager listened attentively, nodding as he jotted down notes. Unlike many of their high-profile clients who sought grandeur, Hollywood legend's request was refreshingly simple yet discerning. "I believe I have a property that matches your vision," the manager said with a smile. "It's a modern home with clean lines and breathtaking views. I can schedule a visit for you." Hollywood legend paused for a moment before adding one important condition. "Please don't mention my name to anyone involved. I value my privacy, and I don't want people treating me differently because of who I am." Hollywood legend's request wasn't just about privacy. It was a quiet rebellion against a world that judged worth by labels. The manager nodded, oblivious to the storm Christine's assumptions would soon unleash. "Of course, Mr. Legend, your identity will remain confidential." With everything arranged, Hollywood legend left the office discreetly, trusting the manager to honor his wishes. The visit was set, but what neither of them knew was how drastically this simple request would shape the experience to come. The morning of the scheduled visit was bright and sunny. Christine, the assigned real estate agent, stood in front of the property, adjusting her blazer. The house she was about to showcase was nothing short of a masterpiece, a sleek, modern design with glass facades, clean lines, and a lush, perfectly manicured garden. It was the kind of property that screamed luxury and exclusivity, just the way she liked it. Christine had been given minimal information about the client. The manager had only shared that the person valued privacy and functionality. She had rolled her eyes when she read the vague description. "Another paranoid businessman," she muttered to herself. She preferred clients who wore their wealth on their sleeves, ones with an obvious eagerness to impress. Her mood soured further when a modest car pulled up. Dust clung to its surface, and it looked out of place in a neighborhood filled with sleek sports cars and luxury SUVs. As the car door opened, Christine's disbelief turned into barely concealed irritation. A man stepped out, dressed in faded jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, and sneakers that had clearly seen better days. "Excuse me," she said, crossing her arms and forcing a tight smile. Her tone was sweet but tinged with sarcasm. "Are you looking for something? This property isn't open to the public." Christine smirked at his dusty car. "Let's hope you can afford the parking fee here," she muttered under her breath. The man, unfazed by her attitude, replied calmly, "I'm here for the scheduled visit." Christine raised an eyebrow, unsure whether to believe him. She checked her tablet and confirmed the appointment, her skepticism evident. "All right," she said curtly. "It seems you do have a visit scheduled. I'm Christine, the agent responsible for this property." She adjusted her diamond earrings, unaware they'd soon feel heavier than her pride. As they approached the house, Christine decided to set the tone. "I'll let you know up front, this is a top-tier home, priced to reflect its exclusivity. Are you sure this is the kind of property you're looking for?" The man nodded, his expression unchanging. "Yes. The manager recommended this property based on what I'm looking for." Christine's doubt lingered. As they stepped inside, she murmured under her breath, just loud enough to be heard. Hollywood Legend heard her comment but remained calm. His relaxed demeanor and quiet confidence made her feel unsettled, though she wasn't sure why. She plastered on a professional smile and gestured toward the grand entryway. "Shall we begin?" she said, her tone bordering on patronizing. Christine had already decided this man didn't belong in the luxurious world she was so accustomed to. What she didn't realize, however, was that her assumptions would soon come back to haunt her in a way she'd never forget. Christine led Hollywood Legend into the grand entryway of the house, her heels clicking sharply against the polished marble floors. "This entryway was designed to make an immediate impact," she said, with exaggerated enthusiasm. "It's the kind of space where guests are left speechless, if of course you entertain guests of that caliber." She glanced at him briefly, her eyes betraying a hint of judgment. Hollywood Legend, unbothered by her tone, walked slowly, taking in the space. As his gaze moved from the high ceilings to the intricate light fixtures, he didn't seem impressed, nor did he react to her subtle jab. Instead, he turned and asked a simple question. "What's the acoustic insulation like in here?" With so much open space, does sound echo significantly? Christine blinked, caught off guard. "Of course the property was designed to minimize such issues," she replied hastily, her tone tight. "Sheds into concern for most clients. They're more interested in the visual appeal than technical details." She moved on, gesturing grandly toward the living room. "This is the heart of the house, with floor-to-ceiling windows made of the highest quality tempered glass. It creates a seamless connection between the indoors and the beautifully landscaped outdoors." She cast a quick glance at Hollywood Legend, expecting a reaction to her carefully crafted sales pitch. Hollywood Legend stepped toward the windows and lightly ran his hand along the metal frame. "Are these windows resistant to extreme weather conditions? With so much glass, that could be a concern." Christine sighed audibly, her patience thinning. "Yes, they're resistant. But as I mentioned, this property isn't designed for practical concerns. It's meant to appeal to clients who value aesthetics and luxury." Her voice carried an edge now, though she attempted to mask it with a smile. Hollywood Legend simply nodded, showing no sign of irritation. "Fair enough," he said, continuing to observe the space. Next, Christine led him into the kitchen, her frustration barely concealed. "This kitchen is a chef's dream," she said, spreading her arms dramatically. "The countertops are made of Carrara marble, one of the most expensive materials on the market. It's perfect for hosting dinners and social events." "Do you host many events?" she asked, her tone more of a test than genuine curiosity. Hollywood Legend approached the marble countertop, running his fingers across the surface. "It's beautiful," he said calmly. "But Carrara marble is porous. What kind of treatment was applied to prevent stains?" Christine inhaled sharply, clearly annoyed. "As I said, this is a high-end property. All materials were treated for durability. I'm sure that won't be an issue for experienced owners." Her words dripped with condescension, but Hollywood Legend didn't seem to notice, or perhaps he chose not to engage. "This isn't a flea market," she snapped. "We don't haggle over stains." The tour continued, with Christine pointing out luxurious details while Hollywood Legend focused on practicality. They moved to the upper floor, where Christine opened the doors to the master suite with a flourish. "This is the kind of space that represents living with class," she declared. "Some of my clients love showing this room off to their friends. But maybe that's not something you'd do, right?" Hollywood Legend ignored her comment and walked to the windows, observing the backyard. The infinity pool shimmered under the sunlight, and the fruit trees swayed gently in the breeze. A small smile crossed his face. This is exactly what I was looking for. A space connected to nature. Christine stifled a laugh. Connected to nature, he said with a hint of sarcasm. Well, for those who value that, perhaps it's ideal. Although for most of my clients, the focus is more on impressing others than relaxing. Hollywood legend turned to her, his expression as calm as ever. Sometimes it's better to impress people with who we are, rather than what we have. Christine froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. His words struck a chord, though she didn't quite understand why. Shrugging off the moment, she moved briskly to the next area, eager to finish what she now saw as a waste of time. As the tour progressed, Hollywood legend continued to ask detailed questions about ventilation, lighting systems, and even the durability of baseboards. Each question seemed to test Christine's patience further. By the time they reached the second-floor terrace, she was visibly exasperated. This terrace offers an unmatched panoramic view, she said, gesturing toward the horizon. It's the perfect spot for hosting parties or enjoying evenings with important friends. Don't you think? Hollywood legend leaned on the railing, gazing at the view. It's beautiful, he said after a moment. But for me, the most important thing is whether the environment is comfortable and functional for daily life. Christine nearly sighed out loud. Look, she said, dropping the pretense. Normally, clients interested in properties at this level come prepared to close a deal. This house is for those who understand and value exclusivity. Are you sure you're in the right place? Hollywood legend turned to her slowly, his serene expression unchanging. I'm sure, he replied, but it's always good to ensure the investment is worth it. His words made Christine uneasy, though she couldn't explain why. As they returned to the ground floor, she was already crafting a story in her mind to tell the manager. In her eyes, this man was nothing more than a curious onlooker wasting her time. But then Hollywood legend's calm voice interrupted her thoughts. I'd like to see the contract and speak with the manager before making any decisions, he said simply. Christine froze, her forced smile faltering. Contract? He's serious. Little did she know, her next insult would cost her everything. Christine quickly regained her composure, though her thoughts raced with confusion. She couldn't believe this casually dressed man, who had spent the entire tour asking practical questions, might actually be serious about purchasing the property. She forced another professional smile and gestured toward the living room. Well, before we finalize anything, let me go over some additional details about the house, she said, trying to maintain control of the situation. As they moved back through the spaces they'd already toured, Christine found herself growing more impatient with each passing minute. Hollywood legend, however, remained calm, taking his time to examine every corner. In the living room, he crouched down to inspect the baseboards near the windows. The finish here is interesting, he said, his tone thoughtful. It looks like they used natural wood. Is it resistant to moisture? Christine crossed her arms, her frustration evident despite her attempts to hide it. Yes, of course. Everything in this house is of the highest quality, she replied, curtly. I don't think you need to worry about small details like that. Hollywood legend simply nodded, unbothered by her dismissive tone. He continued to explore, occasionally testing the functionality of light switches and doors. Christine, meanwhile, stole glances at her watch, silently willing the tour to end. When they reached the second floor again, Christine decided to pick up the pace. She opened the door to one of the guest bedrooms with a brisk motion. This is one of the guest rooms, she said flatly. It's quite spacious, as you can see. But of course I doubt it matters much, if the owner doesn't usually have guests. Hollywood legend stepped into the room and walked to the window, opening it slightly. He inhaled the fresh air and commented, good ventilation, that's important. Well-ventilated spaces are less likely to develop moisture issues on the walls. Christine let out a short laugh, shaking her head. Well, this house wasn't exactly designed for such practical concerns, she said with a sarcastic edge. It's more suited for those who appreciate aesthetics and the lifestyle it offers. Hollywood legend turned to her, his expression thoughtful. For a brief moment, it seemed as though he was evaluating her words, but he didn't respond. Instead, he moved back toward the hallway, signaling he was ready to continue. Christine felt her patience wearing thin. She led him to the second-floor terrace, eager to showcase one of the property's most striking features. Stepping onto the terrace, she gestured toward the breathtaking view of the horizon. "Here we have a view that's simply unmatched," she said, her tone regaining some of its earlier enthusiasm. "It's the kind of feature that sophisticated clients truly value. You can imagine hosting incredible parties here, or enjoying relaxing evenings with important friends. Don't you think?" Hollywood legend leaned on the railing, looking out at the view for several moments. His expression was serene, almost meditative. Finally, he replied, "It's a beautiful view, yes. But for me, the most important thing is whether the environment is comfortable and functional for daily life." Christine clenched her jaw, barely restraining a sigh of frustration. "Look," she said, deciding to be more direct. "Normally, clients who are truly interested in properties at this level come prepared to close a deal. I'm not sure about your experience with homes like this, but this property is designed for those who understand and value exclusivity." "Are you sure you're in the right place?" Hollywood legend turned to her slowly, his calm demeanor unshaken. "Always," he replied, "but it's good to make sure the investment is truly worth it." His words left Christine momentarily speechless. There was something about his tone so steady and self-assured that made her feel uneasy. She glanced away, avoiding his gaze, and quickly gestured for him to follow her back downstairs. By the time they returned to the ground floor, Christine's frustration had reached its peak. She had already decided that this man wasn't a serious buyer. In her mind, he was just another curious visitor wasting her time. She prepared to wrap up the tour and move on with her day. But then, to her surprise, Hollywood legend spoke again. "I'd like to see the contract and speak with the manager before making any decisions," he said calmly. Christine froze, her forced smile faltering. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Odd contract? Is he serious?" "Of course," she said, after a brief pause, her voice a little tighter than before. "I'll call the manager so we can discuss the details. But I should let you know that this is a top-tier property, and the negotiation requires a strong commitment." "I hope you're aware of that." Hollywood legend simply nodded, his calm expression unchanged. Christine excused herself to make the call, her thoughts racing. "Odd, too. Who is this man?" she wondered. "And why does he seem so confident?" As she dialed the manager's number, Christine couldn't shake the feeling that something about this situation was completely different from anything she'd encountered before. Christine returned to Hollywood legend, trying to maintain her composure as she informed him that the manager was on his way. Her smile was tight, and the edges of her frustration still lingered in her voice. "The manager will be here shortly to discuss the details with you," she said. Hollywood legend nodded, then turned to the large sliding doors that led to the backyard. "Would you mind if we step outside while we wait?" he asked calmly. Christine hesitated but then agreed, leading him into the backyard. The scene was stunning. An infinity pool shimmered under the bright sun, while the meticulously landscaped garden surrounded the space with a tranquil charm. Christine's tone regained some of its professional cheer as she gestured toward the area. "This backyard is perfect for hosting social events or simply relaxing after a long day," she said. "Of course, that depends on the lifestyle of the owner." Hollywood legend stepped toward the edge of the pool, his hands in his pockets. He took in the view of the lush garden and the fruit trees swaying gently in the breeze. A small smile crossed his face. "This is exactly what I was looking for. A space connected to nature. It makes all the difference." The infinity pool sparkled like the Hollywood stars Christine worshipped. But Hollywood legend's eyes stayed fixed on the fruit trees, their roots buried deep in unassuming earth. Christine almost laughed. "Connected to nature," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Well, for those who value that, perhaps it's ideal. Although for most of my clients, the focus is more on impressing others than on relaxing." Hollywood legend turned to her, his expression calm but firm. "Sometimes it's better to impress people with who we are rather than what we have." Christine froze for a moment. His words hung in the air, and for the first time she found herself at a loss. Something about the way he spoke unsettled her. Though she couldn't quite place why, she cleared her throat and forced a smile. "Well, I suppose everyone has their own priorities," she said, trying to brush off the moment. "Let's head back inside. The manager should be here soon." As they re-entered the house, Christine's mind raced. She had pegged this man as an unremarkable, out-of-place visitor from the moment he stepped out of his dusty car. But now there was something about him, his quiet confidence, his thoughtful words that made her feel uneasy. The manager's car pulled into the driveway. Christine had 5 minutes left to salvage her career and her dignity. Minutes later, the sound of footsteps echoed through the house as the manager arrived. Christine straightened her posture, hoping to appear as composed as possible. She plastered on her best professional smile, though the tension in her shoulders betrayed her unease. The manager entered the room with a warm smile, his demeanor instantly changing when his eyes landed on Hollywood Legend. "Mr. Legend," he exclaimed, his tone full of respect. "What a pleasure to see you again. I hope the property is meeting your expectations." Christine's heart skipped a beat. Legend? She turned to Hollywood Legend, her mind racing to piece together what she had just heard. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Her throat tightened. The name Legend echoed in her ears like a judge's gavel. Her designer heels suddenly felt like shackles. Hollywood Legend gave the manager a polite nod. "Thank you. The house is beautiful, and it meets many of the qualities I'm looking for," he said in his calm, measured tone. Christine's face turned pale as the realization dawned on her. She had spent the entire tour dismissing and judging him, not realizing she was speaking to Hollywood Legend, one of the most admired and respected figures in Hollywood. Her mind replayed every passive-aggressive comment, every dismissive glance, and every moment she had silently written him off. "I didn't know," Christine stammered, her voice trembling. "I didn't realize." The intern dropped his coffee. The receptionist's gasp was loud enough to drown out Christine's racing heartbeat. Hollywood Legend turned to her, his expression calm but resolute. "You didn't need to know who I am to treat me with respect," he said gently but firmly. His words landed with the weight of a lesson she couldn't ignore. Silence filled the room. The manager shot Christine a reproachful look, clearly understanding what had transpired during the tour. Other staff members, who had gathered nearby out of curiosity, exchanged awkward glances, unsure how to react. Hollywood Legend turned back to the manager. "Before we discuss the contract, I'd like to address something important," he said. "Of course, Mr. Legend," the manager replied quickly, his voice tinged with nervousness. Hollywood Legend gestured toward the space around him. "This house is impressive, and I'm inclined to move forward with the purchase. But today I've learned more about how people are treated here than about the property itself. I requested anonymity because I wanted to be treated like anyone else, without privileges or special treatment. And now I have a clear idea of what happens when someone doesn't fit your expectations." The manager's face flushed with embarrassment. "Mr. Legend, I deeply regret any negative experience you've had," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "This does not reflect our team's values. I assure you, we'll take immediate steps to address this." Christine, who had been standing silently, felt her stomach churn. She wanted to disappear, to escape the suffocating shame that now engulfed her. Gathering her courage, she finally spoke. "Mr. Legend, I truly apologize," she said, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to." Hollywood Legend raised his hand gently, cutting her off. "You didn't mean to judge me?" he asked, his tone calm but piercing. "You didn't mean to assume my worth based on how I look or what I drive. Respect isn't something you reserve for people you think deserve it. It's something you give to everyone." Christine felt tears well up in her eyes. She opened her mouth to respond but found herself unable to speak. The manager tried to diffuse the tension. "Mr. Legend, I promise we'll ensure this never happens again," he said, his tone firm but conciliatory. Hollywood Legend nodded, his expression softening slightly. "I hope so. This isn't just about me. It's about how you treat everyone who walks through that door, regardless of who they are or what you think of them." He turned to Christine one last time. "It's not easy to admit our mistakes, but it's the only way we grow. I hope you take something positive from today." Christine nodded silently, unable to meet his gaze. The weight of his words sank deep, leaving an imprint she knew would stay with her long after he left. The room remained heavy with tension, as Hollywood Legend turned back to the manager. "Now if we're ready, I'd like to review the contract," he said, his tone signaling a return to business. As Hollywood Legend and the manager moved to a quiet corner to discuss the contract, Christine stood frozen in place. Her heart raced, and her thoughts spiraled into a storm of regret and humiliation. She had treated him as if he didn't belong here. judging him from the moment he stepped out of his car. Now every comment and dismissive glance felt like a heavy weight pressing down on her. In the background, the other staff members whispered among themselves. Mark, one of the interns, leaned over to Susan. "This is going to destroy her reputation," he murmured. Susan shook her head, watching Christine with a mix of pity and disapproval. "Maybe she needs this," she replied softly. "She's always treated people like they're beneath her. Now she's learning the hard way." Meanwhile, Christine fought to compose herself. She approached the kitchen counter and grabbed a glass of water, her hands trembling as she took a sip. The cold liquid did little to calm her nerves. The weight of Hollywood legend's words echoed in her mind. "Respect isn't something you reserve for people you think deserve it. It's something you give to everyone." The manager's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "Christine," he said, gesturing for her to join him in a private corner of the room. His tone was serious but controlled. Reluctantly, she followed him, feeling the eyes of the other staff burning into her back. Once they were out of earshot, the manager crossed his arms and fixed her with a stern look. "I don't even know where to start," he said, his voice low but firm. That was unacceptable. Christine swallowed hard, her voice shaky as she tried to explain. "I didn't know who he was, if I had." "That's exactly the problem," the manager interrupted. "You didn't need to know who he was. You judged him, dismissed him, and treated him with complete disrespect. That kind of behavior doesn't belong here, or anywhere." Christine's face flushed with shame. She looked down at the floor, unable to meet his gaze. "You're one of the most experienced agents here, Christine," the manager continued. "And today you acted like the exact opposite. I trusted you with one of our most important clients, and you completely threw it away." "I'm sorry," Christine whispered, her voice barely audible. "I hope you are," the manager replied, "because this is your last chance. If anything like this happens again, you're done here." Christine nodded silently, the lump in her throat making it impossible to speak. The manager walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The whispers of the staff around her felt louder now, each one cutting deeper than the last. As she stood there, trying to process what had just happened, Christine knew one thing for certain. This day and the lesson it had brought would stay with her forever. For the first time, Christine envied the fruit trees. Their growth required no approval, no pretense. Why couldn't she? She vowed to change, but old habits, like old money, die hard. Hollywood legend returned to the room with the same calm demeanor he had maintained throughout the entire visit. The tension in the air was palpable as Christine stood to the side, silent and pale. She kept her head down, hoping to blend into the background. All the staff watched from afar, their curiosity unrelenting. The manager handed Hollywood legend the contract, quickly explaining the final details. Hollywood legend reviewed the papers carefully, his expression thoughtful but composed. Once satisfied, he signed each page with precision, then handed the documents back to the manager. Before leaving, Hollywood legend turned toward Christine. Her heart felt like it had stopped as his gaze met hers. His voice, calm and steady, broke the silence. "Christine," he began, "it's not easy to admit our mistakes, but it's the only way we grow. I hope today is a moment you can learn from." Christine swallowed hard, nodding silently. She could feel tears stinging the corners of her eyes but held them back. Hollywood legend handed the contract to the manager and offered a small warm smile. Then, without another word, he turned and walked toward the door. The sound of his footsteps echoed faintly as he exited the house, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than before. From the window, the staff watched as Hollywood legend climbed into his modest car and started the engine. To their surprise, the car didn't pull away. Instead, it remained parked, idling quietly. "He's waiting for the final paperwork," the manager murmured to himself, his voice tinged with both relief and tension. He knew Hollywood legend could have easily walked away after what had happened, but instead, he had chosen to proceed. Christine remained frozen in place, her mind replaying his parting words. The weight of her actions, and the kindness he had shown despite them, pressed down on her. She knew she would never forget the man who had taught her a lesson in humility, without ever raising his voice. The atmosphere inside the luxurious house remained heavy, even after Hollywood legend had left to wait in his car. Christine stood in the corner, her thoughts racing with regret and shame. Every word he had spoken echoed in her mind, each one hitting harder than the last. She had judged him, dismissed him, and treated him with disdain, all because he didn't fit the image of the typical client she was used to. The manager quickly finalized the paperwork, his hands trembling slightly as he double-checked every detail. He understood how close they had come to losing a deal that could have easily been jeopardized by Christine's behavior. Once everything was in order, the manager stepped outside to deliver the documents to Hollywood Legend. Christine stayed behind, unable to muster the courage to face him again. She watched through the window as the two exchanged a few words before Hollywood Legend drove off, his car disappearing down the street. As the house grew quiet again, Christine felt the full weight of what had happened. This wasn't just a lesson about professionalism. It was a wake-up call about the way she treated people. Hollywood Legend's calm yet firm words had pierced through her pride, forcing her to confront the flaws in her attitude. Respect, she realized, wasn't something you gave only to those you deemed worthy. It was a universal value, one that shouldn't depend on appearances or assumptions. From that day forward, Christine vowed to carry the lessons she had learned. She understood that her credibility as a professional and as a person depended on treating everyone with kindness and respect, no matter who they were. As for Hollywood Legend, he left more than just his signature on the contract that day. He left an unforgettable mark on everyone who had witnessed what had unfolded, a reminder that true class and humility speak louder than anything else. In the end, the mansion's glass walls reflected more than the sunset. They mirrored a truth Christine would carry forever. True worth isn't bought, it's built. As Hollywood Legend's car vanished down the hill, Christine's phone buzzed, a client cancellation, the first of many.